Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Row's Pride Month event, Representation Matters, How the LGBTQ plus Changed the Entertainment Industry. I'd like to remind those joining to please turn your microphones and cameras off as this event will be recorded. The panel will be an hour long with the Q&A at the end, so please post any questions you have in the chat room. I am Richard Ianu. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a domestic distribution manager at Sony Pictures, the vice president of Out at Sony Pictures, our LGBTQ plus employee resource group, and on the advisory committee here at Film Row. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Film Row, we are a professional networking group made up of motion picture group employees from across the entertainment industry. Our objective is to foster the future leaders of our industry through educational programs, networking events, and career development workshops, while also fundraising for causes that benefit our industry and beyond. Also, as an affiliate of the Will Rogers Motion Picture Pioneers Foundation, we champion philanthropic endeavors while also providing personal and professional growth opportunities for industry professionals to take the next steps in their careers. Today's event has been created and executed by the LEAD committee at Film Row. LEAD, which stands for Leadership, Education, Advancement, and Diversity, was formed to gain understanding, compassion, and unity, while also empowering underrepresented minorities in the entertainment industry through education and career development. Shelley, Carl, Mariana, Frank, and Jeff are our leaders, and I personally want to thank them for inviting me to do the intro to this incredible panel in celebration of Pride Month. Pride Month was something I did not grow up celebrating. When I was younger, any association with Pride automatically meant you were gay, and I personally struggled with coming out. It wasn't my fear of not being accepted that kept me in the closet. I have amazing parents. It was that I did not see a future for myself. Gay marriage was illegal, HIV/AIDS was only a gay man's disease, and there were not nearly as many allyship organizations as there are today. I had no queer role models and was scared to ask, so I learned about my sexuality and community history from books, movies, TV, the internet, and magazines. And in every single queer story or historical event, the message was loud and clear. Do not live in fear to be your authentic self, and visibility is the catalyst for change. Today, I love celebrating Pride Month. It's a month for joy, respect, diversity, and inclusion, a month to reflect on my personal growth, and most importantly, a month to honor and remember that Pride began as a protest. Without the initial bravery of the LGBTQ plus community before us, especially Black trans women and Black drag queens, the Pride movement would never have gained the momentum to turn into the celebrations we know it as today. However, more than 300 anti-LGBTQ plus bills have been introduced this year, targeting everyone from our youth to our seniors. So as we celebrate in the parades, or buy special edition Pride merch, or reshare our company's logo turning rainbow this month, please take a moment to reflect on why and how we got here. Celebrate how far we've come, and remember how far we still have to go in the fight for full sexual, gender, and racial equality. I could not be more excited to introduce our moderator for today, Wendy Armitage. This is a true full circle moment because Wendy is actually my first queer role model. I joke that I must have been on the lot for less than an hour before she could smell the gay on me and recruited me to join Out at Sony. In her defense, I do bathe in Chanel Blue and I do not leave the house if my beard is not lined up. And for those 8 years, she was the executive advisor at Out, and under her oversight, she managed multiple 360-degree studio activations at LA Pride festivals, helped guide SPE's Taiwanese office to advocate for their country's first ever Pride Parade, created a short film showcase called Reel Her In to expose LGBTQ filmmakers to the studio's decision makers, and single-handedly helped Sony Pictures maintain a 100% rating on the Corporate Equality Index. My favorite accolade of hers is that she was included in Variety's Power of Pride 2020 list, alongside some casual people like Tim Cook and Rachel Maddow and Lil Nas X. As a true film lover her whole life, Wendy has risen through the ranks during her 20+ years at SPE and is currently the SVP of Global Marketing Operations. She is truly a trailblazer in our community and someone who has changed me for the better. Everyone, please welcome my friend, Wendy Armitage.
Rich, wow, that was quite an introduction. How do I follow that? Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to see some old friends that I haven't seen in a while, even though it's on a screen. But I would like to just get right to it and introduce our panelists. First up is Christian Arenas. He and I have a history that goes way back. I hired Christian here at Sony. Christian was born and raised in Southern California to a musician father and a working mother who did it all. His love of entertainment started early after reading his mother's Star magazine, picking up on celebrity gossip at an early age. Christian studied psychology and business at Loyola Marymount University. His first job after graduation was at Pacific Theaters Corp in film buying, where he learned how movies found their placement on the screen. From there, he was part of the exhibitor relations teams at multiple film studios, my team included. And throughout the years, he eventually landed at Dolby Labs, where all of his past peers and teammates are now his amazing partners. So please welcome to the screen, Christian Arenas. Hi, Christian. Next up is John C. Hall. John and I go back years and years. We used to travel the Cinemark route together. John C. Hall is a film, television, and theatrical producer, as well as a published author. Most recently, he served as Executive Vice President of Distribution and Marketing at Universal Pictures. His tenure in entertainment has seen him working on the marketing and distribution campaigns for over 375 theatrical releases, including major franchise titles, Oscar winners, and dozens of mega blockbusters. Hall is currently a producer on several feature films, including the fictional corporate heist comedy that is loosely based on the Enron story, a female-driven psychological thriller called Killer, and a wedding comedy, The Token Groomsman, which he co-wrote based on his original story idea. Additionally, John is a producer on several short films and theatrical Broadway productions. Please welcome to the screen, John. Hi, John. Next up is Ellene Miles. I am a big fan of Ellene Miles. She is the Senior Vice President of Intersectional Marketing at Sony Pictures Entertainment Motion Picture Group. She's focused on engaging the core audience, inclusive of LGBTQ+, AAPI, US Hispanic, and Black moviegoers. Prior to joining Sony in 2018, Miles worked for nearly 2 decades as an agency partner with virtually every major studio in Hollywood, executing comprehensive campaigns for several television series, films, lifestyle brands, and corporate entities. She is widely regarded in the industry as a strategic specialist, and her passion for increasing and maintaining visibility for multicultural press has been a constant throughout her career. Ellene holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Public Relations and Advertising from Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, and resides right here in the Los Angeles area. Please welcome to your screen, Ellene. And last but not least, this is in alphabetical order, Jeff Zarrillo. Jeff is a native of the New Jersey Shore who has shown that ordinary people can do extraordinary things with the help of family and community. He continues to work to advance equality in all aspects of life for the LGBTQ+ community and communicating the idea that having the courage to stand up is contagious. Having worked for AMC Theater since 1988, Jeff is a general manager at Burbank 30 and the first field chair, congratulations, Steph, this is amazing, first field chair of the LGBTQ+ Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, working to improve opportunities and the overall workplace for LGBTQ+ associates. Please welcome to your screen, Jeff Zarrillo. Hi, Jeff. Well, let's everybody go ahead and unmute yourselves, and we'll go ahead and get this started. The way I like to moderate panels is very conversational, and it's all kind of direct questions so everybody knows, but feel free to sort of jump in and feel free to talk. We'll start because, Jeff, you were introduced last. We're going to start with you first. What does Pride Month mean to you, and especially what does it mean to you this year?
Well, Pride Month to me is an opportunity for us to all celebrate who we are and who we love. But I think more than that, it's to be with a community, and a community of not just people within the LGBTQ+ community, but to celebrate with our allies, because as a community and as a minority, we would not be where we are with progress without the allyship that we have. And I think that during this time of being surrounded by so many of my peers and colleagues from the movie theater industry, seeing how we're growing as an industry. I was very proud to be on stage in CinemaCon last month when we introduced the first rom-com from a major motion picture studio at Universal Pictures Bros. So it's just another reason that we celebrate Pride Month with each other, but we celebrate Pride Month with our colleagues as well. Regardless of the time of year that we're in, or regardless of the state of our politics or the state of our country, it's still an opportunity to celebrate progress, understand where we still need to go, and thank those who pass the baton off to us generation after generation for progress.
Very well said. Ellene, we'll pivot over to you. What does Pride Month mean to you, and especially this year?
Yeah, this year felt really special. I mean, we are outside, which was super, great to kind of feel and touch people and be in spaces that felt like people had a different appreciation for this community specifically. I mean, I think that I felt, as a, gay woman who's married, it was really awesome to be able to share that, sort of excitement and allyship and, just to feel connected. I really believe that this was a very special year for a lot of us. We've been through a lot. This has been a very tough couple of years, and our community remains vulnerable and consistently targeted in a lot of ways from the highest offices. And so to kind of be able to be together and talk through it and feel like you have community was really special this year.
Fantastic. John, what about you?
I really look forward to Pride, and as somebody said earlier, Rich said that, like, this kind of stuff didn't happen when I was younger. So like, it's really great to see it now, and I hope that the younger generation really appreciates that this is something that happens. And in the world today with everything going on, it's easy to get cynical, but honestly, I feel a little bit excited when I see the rainbow flag appear in everyone's logo. And I know there's some people that are like, oh, it's June, they only do it for June, but like more and more companies are doing it, and it's important that they do it, and it's important that they keep doing it, because it's like a domino effect. Every year, more and more corporations, more and more people start, flying that pride flag or any of the pride flags. And it just reminds everybody that we're here and that we're important to the community. And then it matters, the corporations do it, and I know why they do it, but I'll take it. It's a little victory, so give it to us, and we'll keep moving forward.
Most definitely. And Christian, what about you?
Yeah, hey everybody. Apologies in advance. I'm getting over some laryngitis. But yeah, I think everybody's pretty much touched on a lot of the things. I think for me specifically this year, it was the first year that there were in-person events. So that really, again, when you're talking about community and everything, it helps to actually be able to get together in groups. And so it was really nice to kind of, even though we've seen some people, to see like larger groups of us together and celebrating, and who doesn't love a parade? So yeah, I think this is a little bit more important than, we needed it.
No, totally. For some of you guys who know me, I come from a small town in Central California. It's small-ish, but I was excited to see what that they posted on Facebook that they were bringing their Pride event back, and that it was going to be in person. And that's a big thing for Bakersfield, where I'm from, because when you lose that for a few years, there's a big chance that it may not come back in some of the smaller towns. So that was, I think, the little pride moment for me this year. That was like, oh, that's amazing that even some of the smaller towns are able to still bring their events back. And they had a ton of people show up, and a ton of allies show up, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, we'll pivot on to the next thing, and kind of the thing that we're all focused on. John, we'll start with you on this one. Do you have a memorable experience of like the first time you felt like you were represented on screen? Like the first time you went to see a movie and you were like, oh, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if it's the first time I ever witnessed something that made me feel connected, but the most memorable to me was, and I'm old enough to have seen this movie theatrically. So when the movie came out, Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss, with Sean Hayes, who went on to do enormous things for us in Will and Grace and everywhere else. But seeing that movie for the first time, I saw it in Atlanta. At AMC Phipps Plaza. And I remember seeing it on the marquee, and I'm getting a little choked up now just thinking about it. Like, to be able to go in and see that movie and walk in and not be afraid and be proud and see those moments. And I think, you know, spoiler alert, the movie's almost 30 years old. I think they do kiss at the end. But, you know, like, it was just seeing it on the marquee was the moment where I realized that, you know, we were making strides even in the, whenever that was, late 90s, I think. And so that's probably the most memorable. And to this day, I kind of call it maybe my favorite LGBTQ themed movie.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Jeff, what about for you?
You know, it's weird when I think about representation. When I was growing up I was in high school in the early 90s. Anytime I saw people that looked like me, I was far in the closet at that point. But typically, our community wasn't portrayed very well on screen. We were either a sidekick or someone that was, you know, disposable in the movie, if you will. But really, what resonates with me is the movie Milk, Harvey Milk. And that movie, even though it was later, you know, in 2008, obviously, but the power of that movie and it was the first time I saw someone that loved like I did, who represented the community and wanted nothing but progress and encouraged everyone who he was with to come out and be proud. That really resonated with me. I unfortunately did not have similar experiences to John growing up, where I was seeing, you know, I think I saw Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss, but I saw it later, and I think I snuck it, a VHS tape of it in order to see it. But I just wasn't seeing enough representation, and to see where we are now, so progressive, where you have shows with LGBTQ plus leads and people that are making a difference in people's lives. I think that speaks volumes to how far we've come.
Jeff, would you say that sort of the inspiration of Milk helped you along in your journey later in life, when you joined the lawsuit, and basically helped, I think, everybody on this call, with the exception of myself, get married? Yeah. Would you say that was like inspiring and helped lead to that?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I'm sure there were conversations with John Hall and Eric Carr back then about how inspirational that movie was, because there were many times where we thought, you know, do we really want, you know, my husband Paul and I had talked about, like, do we really want to be the face of this thing, especially in California, and what that opens us up to. And we multiple times had said to ourselves, if we were having a conversation in the Castro right now with Harvey Milk, what would he tell us to do? Would he tell us to sit on the sidelines? Would he tell us
I just got chills.
that it's okay to be a second-class citizen? No, Harvey Milk would have said, get out there and do it. You got to make a difference. And if it's right, you know, if it was right then, it's right now. If it was in support of the law, then it's in support of the law now. And so that was all. It was definitely an inspiration to me. And Harvey is an inspiration to me regularly. And a lot of the things I do, it's like one of those, you know, what would Jesus do? For me, it's like, what would Harvey do?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I got chills. Ellene, what about Jeff? We'll go back to that a little bit later, but I kind of, you led right into it with the Harvey Milk and with the film. But Ellene, what about you? Where did you feel first represented on screen? Where did you look? And I know you and I have had this conversation a lot. I go down to Ellene's office just to chat. But where would you say was probably your first big, you know, moment where you saw yourself on screen?
I love both of those films, by the way. Both of those films I've watched multiple times, and every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, Harvey was so ahead of his time. There was a film called Pariah
Yes.
that came out a few years ago, directed by Dee Rees, and it was centered on a young African American girl, a coming of age story, and she was discovering who she was and really leaning into, the fact that she was lesbian and dealing with issues of family. And it was just so touching and beautiful and well written, and it just really felt authentic, and for me, I had not seen that. I had seen, to someone's earlier point, we were always the butt of the joke or the punchline or whatever. And um, most, frankly, like most Black stories that are coming of age usually involve gunplay, or some kind of violence that we're escaping. So this was just a quiet, beautiful story of this girl and her journey. And it stays with me, and I watch it at least every other year just because it touches me so much. And I think it's evergreen. And I would show it to any young person that is sort of, coming through that horrible adolescent time when you just are trying to figure your life out and you need all the support you can get. So I would say Pariah is probably my number one.
Fantastic. It's for anybody on this call. It is a beautiful movie. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. I hope somebody's making a list of like all these films. Christian, over to you.
Okay, so Wendy, you can't keep calling me on last because my answer, but it's gonna sound so dumb. I'm like,
no, I'm gonna call on you first for the next one. I promise.
It's like everyone's got these inspirational stories. I mean, my favorite movie, and does like represent. I mean, people say I remind them of John Leguizamo, so I guess anything he's in.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's more like maybe physically, but I mean, honestly, like it's not exactly like, I guess maybe because it's my type of humor, and I do think it's something that the gay community is really drawn to, but camp stuff, like, so, Clueless is like one of the movies that I swear to God, I saw like, I don't know how many times. The same thing with Romeo and Michelle, like there's gay characters in between there, I'm sure, but I mean, we as a community, I know a lot of people, I grew up with that, I quote that stuff. So, I mean, that's like the first time I felt like represented in that, like, wait, this is like, a different, and and you kind of know that it speaks to a certain audience because other people are like, this is dumb, like why do you like this? And it's like, oh, you just don't get it. So I would have to go with something more in the camp realm, and yeah, that's kind of it.
No, but I love that. It shows that the community is diverse and the community has diverse tastes. And yes, we can like Oscar nominated films and fantastic small films from Sundance, and but at the same time appreciate these like massively camp films that, I mean, come on, let's be honest, drag queens go out and perform and embody, and it's amazing. So yeah, don't ever talk yourself down.
Two films, I would have named the other one too, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what was your other film, Ellene?
To Wong Fu.
To Wong Fu. Yeah.
Seeing, I just laughed just even picturing them, like picturing Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo. It's the best. It's just, if it's on, I'm watching it. Like if I'm scrolling and it comes on, I'm definitely watching it. It just was such a landmark. So yeah, we like lighthearted stuff too, for sure. Those are super impactful as well.
No, that's great. What kind of leads into the next question? Christian, we'll start with you. How do you feel that representation has it improved over the last few years? Do you think we have a long way to go? And kind of to the To Wong Fu point, do you think straight actors should play gay roles and vice versa?
Yeah, wow.
Kind of a controversial question there.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we'll break it down. I don't know. Definitely want to hear from some of the other great folks. I mean, we've made some steps, but we're by no means like it's not fair and balanced, right? And I mean, I don't think we should be happy that we get a few crumbs. Like to Jeff's point, Universal is going to be releasing the first like big major studio gay romance comedy. That's awesome. I hope there's a sequel and I hope there's a prequel and, there's more to come, right? It shouldn't be a one and done. So I don't think we as a community should just settle because we got one Black lesbian movie, one Latino gay. I think we got to keep, and we got to show up, right? Because I mean, when it comes down to it, the box office is going to do it. But so I think there's definitely been some strides, but we're not by any means like through that yet. If you go to like the movies, there's no more movie rentals, but the section's still small. I don't know how I feel about honestly, again, it's controversial about should straight people play gay or gays. I mean, it's challenging, right? Because you don't want to shoebox gay actors to only play gay roles, right? Because there's great roles, but is it fair to then do it the other way around? I think because it's been skewed so much, I think until we even out like the scales, then maybe like, it should be the right person for the right role. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth on it. I could see a case for both, right? So that's why I work behind the screens. So.
Definitely. John, we'll jump to you next. Do you feel like it's improved over the last few years? And then what do you think about that controversial question of the gay actors versus straight actors and the roles? And I think this really comes into play. I don't mean to just say gay actors. There's been a lot of conversation about transgender actors and whether they should be the only ones to play transgender roles. And there's a long history there of very negative stereotypes and very negative portrayals that sort of leads into that question. But John, I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like to stay optimistic. So there's no hiding that every community has a long way to go to hit certain benchmarks and keep going and keep growing. It's part of what we do as a civilization, I think. But just in looking, someone was nice enough to post kind of these movies we're all talking about, I guess with links, and then the dates that they came out. And I noticed that Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss and Milk were exactly 10 years apart. And that kind of just hit me right now, being on this panel, seeing how far we came in 10 years. Because Milk is a very serious drama with, a kind of almost a living legendary actor in it. And it's about stuff. It's about, not that Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss isn't, but it's about a movement. It's about a city. It's about a politician, and everything that he did is still resonating today. And Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss was, I guess, kind of an early attempt to show, it was an indie movie. So, the Universal, what they're doing with Bros, I think is great, but like, it was an indie movie. Not a lot of people saw it. It's sort of become a community fan favorite over the years, but it was literally just about a guy trying to find somebody to fall in love with. So seeing that 10 years and how far we've come, I think is fantastic. To answer the question, I think letting gay actors or whoever, anyone play another person on screen, whether it's gay or straight or anything else, it's like, I think that's important. I think that in and of itself is diversity. And I was years ago in Washington, DC at a conference. It was when I was at the studio, and someone was speaking there, and they were saying they didn't think that straight actors should play gay roles because it might hurt their career. And I was like, wow, like you couldn't even say that today. Like that's so controversial. But that was kind of the thought process, 10, 15 years ago. There was this taboo about it. And so let's break that barrier as we go to let people play whatever role they feel comfortable playing.
That's fantastic. That's a great answer. Ellene, we'll jump over to you for this.
I mean, I struggle with that answer only because, and I agree with you, John, 100%, because it's always, I have this idea of is gay a certain look? Is gay a certain tone of voice? Is gay a certain thing? Like we're saying that you have to embody what in order to play that, so I just feel like it's the right person for the role. I just think so. I mean, we don't want to be into caricature territory, but at the same time, actors play make believe for a living, and so if we have to embody what it's like to be heterosexual, then I don't see why it can't go the other way in the right circumstances, and when it's not, when it's well, it has to be well done, obviously, but I just feel like the normalization of that is important.
Most definitely. Jeff, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I don't know if John is having the same thing that I'm having, but I see the names of these movies in the years, and I immediately think of what theater I was working at and what auditorium it played. Yeah. I mean, I can totally do that. Uh-huh. I was at Monmouth Mall when Clueless came out. I think I sort of echo what everybody says. I think the important thing about who should play who. Let's remember, Tom Hanks won an Academy Award for playing a gay man, and so did Sean Penn. But I think what's important about actors being cast in roles is the equity, is the access to auditioning and ultimately being selected for the role, is that access available to the greater community, LGBTQ plus community? And similar to any other job that someone's going for, if we're truly focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, the workplace is a movie studio too, and selecting talent. And if there's equity in the opportunity, and a straight person is the best person in the audition, then the straight person should get the opportunity. But the opportunity and the equity and the opportunity for a transgender individual to audition for a transgender role, they should be called in regularly for those opportunities. But they have to be a good actor. And that's for obviously studio people and casting people to decide. But you sometimes fall into is that person a box office draw? Is having Tom Hanks play a gay man, and you say, okay, Jeff, you can have an opportunity to read for that role that Tom Hanks is playing for. Tom Hanks is a better actor than me. But the equity and the opportunity is what's important. And to talk about the earlier question, the representation, there's so many opportunities now with all these streaming platforms. You can go on any of these streaming platforms and within 30 seconds find a show, and even a rail. There'll even be a rail that has LGBTQ, and it's all the TV shows and the movies. So that's important, and that's getting is more abundant each passing year. There's more and more opportunity for LGBTQ plus actors to audition, and then ultimately leading to more LGBTQ plus content, whether it's in mostly in streaming. I think there's opportunity in film to get better, but in the streaming platforms, there's a lot of content, and that's continuing to grow.
No, and I'm glad you said that about equity. A few years ago, I met the transgender actor Elliot Fletcher, who was on The Fosters and then had a subsequent role on Shameless. And we had a great conversation about how he wasn't getting access to auditions. And I was actually able to facilitate introducing him to our head of casting here at Sony. Had a fantastic conversation. I don't know what came of it. I was just the facilitator to connect them. But just being able to make those connections, being able to give the actors access is the most important thing. So yeah, and you brought up a great point about that. When we talk about content, we, all of us are in the film industry, right? So we talk theatrical quite a bit. Television seems to be leaps and bounds above where film is at as far as content goes. And then now you have streaming that is kind of surpassing, right, LGBTQ on-screen content and theatrical. What do you think it would take, and I'm kind of pivoting from questions a little bit, but what do you think it would take to get studios to invest a little bit more, open themselves up a little bit more? John, we'll go to you since you're a budding producer now. What do you think it would take to get studios to be a little bit more on board with the theatrical experience of LGBTQ plus content?
It all boils down to like, and this isn't a safe answer, I don't think. It's about what the content is about, and the content has to be compelling. And we have stories to tell too. Our community has stories to tell, and they're important stories. And like other communities, I don't know that we've had this long time span to tell stories, of things that have happened a long time ago, or like, probably, one of the most famous historical figures who everyone speculates is homosexual is Alexander the Great. And it's like, even when they did a movie about him, they completely sidestepped that in the theatrical version. And it's like, we have so much further to go, but it's just about making good content and telling our stories. My big thing is I love, and this isn't so much theatrical, but like, in commercials, I love when folks do when companies do what I like to call like non-romantic IDing. It shows what you assume is a gay male couple or a female lesbian couple or this person or that person together, and doing something that isn't like physical contact, like unloading groceries from a minivan, or like playing frisbee with the dog in the park. It's like there's so much more to life than just being ID'd your sexuality. And
Yeah.
like, I feel like that's, and I'm probably getting ahead because I saw one of the next questions, and I'm like, it's like, you know, like you don't want to just be called that, you know, that gay person or that lesbian person or that queer person. Like, you want to be yourself, and you don't want to have to conform to certain things that society puts on you. You just want to live your life and tell your story. So I think when we start doing that more, that's when these stories will be more and more impactful on the theatrical screens.
And it's money too, right? Like, let's not forget, like, it's a business, and so it has to do well. It has to be monetarily sound in order for it to work. That's just the business imperative that we have. So the balance of the storytelling and the monetary value is very, very important not to forget.
Love the dogs in the background, Ellene. No, it's all good. So to talk to the monetary value, we had a film, Happiest Season, that a lot of us here at the studio were excited about, really excited. Clea Duvall directed and wrote, Kristen Stewart starring, and you know, just a run-of-your-mill girl takes girl home to meet family and then pretend she's a roommate, but they're together, and it's a whole thing, and mishaps happen, and you know, it just, the timing of it was terrible, and it ended up doing very well on Hulu, which is where we licensed it out to. So it's the monetary of it, I think, is probably the most important thing, of like, is it a story that resonates? Is it a story that can be a broad appeal to the community? Because our community is very diverse, and it's you know, but we like to be inclusive of each other. We like to support each other. I've seen the Bros trailer. I died laughing at the Bros trailer, and I cannot wait to go opening weekend to see this movie. I try to go opening weekend to every film that has a queer character in it, including Buzz Lightyear this last weekend. I was there, and I bought 2 tickets and was supporting it. So yeah. We'll pivot a little bit. Let's go to some workplace questions. Jeff, we're going to start with you. How can we build an atmosphere of inclusion regardless of our personal or religious views? And I want to throw this one to you because of you working for AMC Theater, you're this big regional lead. You're obviously somebody who's very involved with a very diverse workforce across several regions and you know, several places where it can be a little bit conservative, a little bit more liberal, that sort of thing. How do you work to build that atmosphere of inclusion, you know, irregardless of some things that kind of separate us a little bit?
That's a great question, and I think it really needs to start with the leadership of the company. And you know, our CEO Adam Aaron, he's the one that started these DEI councils at AMC, and it's something that was very important to him. So when you have decision makers that can help create a culture, then you have the people that report to Adam supporting that culture, because it's important to Adam that he create an environment across. I mean, we're in nearly all 50 states, and we all know that all 50 states are different. They're different in their tapestry of diversity. They're different in the laws that they have, and you know, we don't have to go into that, but we all know that. But we have theaters in nearly all 50 states, so we have to create that culture, and then you have to have the messengers of that culture, whether it's your operations team or your general managers. DEI needs to be part of all of our decision-making process. It's not just about hiring. It's about the vendors that you use. It's about the suppliers that you use. Diversity, equity, and inclusion should be part of the entire part of the organization from the top down. But if you don't have the individuals at the top who help to create the culture and set the expectations, then you're not going to necessarily have that in the field. And understanding that not every individual is going to feel supportive of the LGBTQ movement or the BLM movement. You know, we understand that people have different, there's a diversity of thought there, but you have to create the culture to make sure you're doing the right thing. And it's okay that it's hard. It's okay to be uncomfortable. We have to get used to being a little uncomfortable as we make progress, because progress, no matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, if progress is happening, then you're moving forward. And if you're keeping DEI at the forefront of the way you think and the way you inspire, then you're going to be able to create a culture that is far reaching, not just in one area of your company, not just in one state of your company. If it's important to the CEO and the senior leadership team, and they're willing to walk the talk, then we have to be willing to do that in the field too. And we're not always going to agree with decisions that our corporate officers make, but as employees of the company, we have to go out and support those policies, whether we agree with them or not. But I think the more we, as individuals, as associates in our companies, are open about who we are and we tell our stories, then that moves hearts and minds. And as we move hearts and minds, we move the company forward, we move the state with which that theater is in forward, and we move us as an organization forward. But you can't just have a DEI council and then do nothing about them, or just have meetings and not show any progress. We're very lucky at AMC to have a CEO that cares about it and a leadership team that walks the talk.
That's awesome. Christian, what about you? How, obviously you're at Dolby, you work externally with a lot of the studios, but how do you guys at Dolby sort of build an atmosphere of inclusion for you guys?
Yeah, I think Jeff said a lot of the same points. Dolby also, I say more recently because I've started becoming more active, but we also have a diversity, inclusion, and belonging group. Different acronym, same messages. And within that, there's various employee network groups. We do have an LGBTQ plus one. We have a Latino one that I co-lead. So it's again kind of creating that structure so that we could have a place that we can kind of find our own community within. And that's been especially challenging for the groups, again, working remotely, to kind of build that. But again, I think having some structure, which is brought in from the corporate level, which each group has an ELT member, kind of at the helm, which also kind of helps push things along, because, I think you need someone that has that seat at that table. So that's one thing that I appreciate that the company's done. And it's given us like an ability to kind of Jeff's point, you're not going to win everybody over, but at least if you sell your side of the story and let them in, there's those people who do want to listen. And for those who don't bother.
No, totally. Ellene, from your perspective, and you oversee an intersectional marketing. So how do you build an atmosphere of inclusion in the marketing for our films? Because we've seen sort of the studio standpoint, we've seen the exhibitor standpoint, but how would you say that how do you build that atmosphere?
Well, it really starts with what partners we select to work with. And that can be an agency partner, that can be a brand partner, whoever we partner with, we feel like really needs to sort of have the same philosophy, right? That they believe in the viability and the, again, going back to the business model, that this is not just the right thing to do, but it's the profitable thing to do. And it makes sense for us to be, respectful of the audiences that make up a huge amount of our box office, So if you sort of think about it in terms of, what is important to them as a company, to Jeff's earlier point, it's really important for the company to be bought into this and for the leadership to be brought into this. And so, my LGBT agency, multiple ones that I use, they all have a very strong activism background, which is important for me. There's just a personal importance for me that they're not just, smiling and dialing, but they're actually a part of the community in a way that's substantive. And I think the teams that we build out are very much aligned with that. I mean, I think that we believe that, again, it's not just a box to check. It's something that has to be done on every film. We don't want to just come to these groups when we need them. We want to have a long-term, year-round relationship where there's give and take, and we support them and they support us. And so they have to have the same philosophy, and that's where we start, with just the foundation of respect.
That's fantastic. Well said. John, what about you?
I love what everyone's saying, and I was just kind of like hearing the word inclusion and then just the way I think, like I'm flipping it, you know, and it's like the reverse of that is excluding people, right? And it's like when you think about what you do when you exclude people, when you exclude any group or any, you know, gender or whatever, you're completely losing that entire, you know, group's thought process, their ideas, their abilities, you know, what they contribute to society. And like as a business, because you know, I mean, the word itself, you're trying to stay in business, right? You're trying to, you know, you're trying to commence with commerce. And it's like, if you're excluding people, then you're automatically shutting down either a customer or a potential employee, you know, somebody that ideas come from everywhere, right? It doesn't matter. And, you know, because our community is kind of, you know, to the outside world, it's like, you know, it's like a sexuality, you know, like we're grouped together because of that, but like that, there's so much more to people than that. And it's like, if you're shutting them out and excluding them and not including them, you're losing all that, you know, knowledge that they have as a person.
Very well said. So we have a lot of participants on here, and I'm positive that there are a lot of allies on this call. So I wanted to kind of throw a question out. I'm going to answer it first. I'm going to go first, and Christian, you probably know what I'm going to say. But the question is that I'm going to ask all of you guys is, do you have an ally in the industry? I had an amazing ally when I came to Sony. She was my boss. She's still 2 doors down from me. I still ping everything off of her. She allowed me to be who I was and never shy away from it. Anna Elizabeth Crotty has been an amazing ally for me in this industry, and I never had to hide who I was. I always felt comfortable to just be my very, very, very short-haired gay self. I would show you guys a picture, but it would terrify you all. So that was who my big ally was, and she still is to this day. So Christian, I'm going to pivot to you first. Do you have an ally that has been helpful for you in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, fortunately, like, maybe even not recognizing or realizing that they were an ally, but, you know, I was very fortunate also starting right out of college in this industry, and one that I didn't know anybody or knew of. And, you know, even from my first job at Pacific Theaters, you know, I had the head film buyer there, Jerry Pokorski. I mean, he was like a mentor. I mean, at the time, I didn't maybe think I needed one, but I never hid who I was either. But it was, again, to your point, not someone that, you know, where there was like lessons learned or correcting. It was about the job itself, not like, hey, why are you doing this? Or, you know what I mean? So, and then again, when I joined your team, especially, you know, the gay quota just like doubled, you know,
yeah.
So it's like, then it became even more like casual and more like, even more like, oh my God, I can't believe what we did this weekend. And then, you know, I think throughout those, like, again, and maybe it's the thing about our industry specifically, we have so many other peers who we're fortunate to work with a lot of great LGBT professionals, and they're, you know, and the other people who aren't, but are supportive of them. So I've just always felt very comfortable in the spaces that we're always in, and especially in our exhibit relation world. Like, I think it's required by the rule that at least one gay member in each group. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't just give it to one person. I've been fortunate to come across many who's just, without knowing, helped me continue to be obnoxiously myself.
Nice. That's very well said. John, what about you? Was there a specific ally that kind of helped you along in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like Christian said, there's been so many, and you know, I don't want to exclude any of them. So like, but like the one that I just go to, and because it was such a pivotal moment in my career, was the legendary Nikki Rocco. And you know, she was a trailblazer herself, you know, and she was the first female head of distribution at a major studio, I think actually of any studio. And because she became president in like the mid 90s. But you know, I had just been promoted and I was running my business unit, and she called me into her office, and she had this little remote control where she could shut the door behind you when you came in. So like I came in, the door shut behind me. I was like, okay, what's going on here? I just got promoted, so they're hopefully not firing me. And like she sat me down and she said, hey, the head of the studio is starting this diversity council. And we want you to be the chairperson from the distribution division. And, you know, at the time there were like 150 employees in the distribution division. So like, I was super honored, and I was sitting there thinking, and I didn't say it to her because I knew what she was getting at. Like, I'm a middle-aged white man who dresses kind of conservatively. So basically, you're putting me on this committee because you know I'm an out gay man. You just didn't say that. But you know, like she's from a different generation. I really respected that she was doing this, that she was putting someone like me on the committee. And you know, when I actually got to the committee, there were other people from our community on this wider board, but there were all sorts of diversity represented. But it was just a great moment, and it meant so much to me, and it made me think. She faced similar challenges, you know, in the 60s and 70s and 80s as a woman who is a woman executive, and what everyone in this industry used to call the good old boys club. You know, we've all heard it, said it, and so like that was a big moment for me, and I was so grateful for her.
That's fantastic. Ellene, what about for you?
For me, it was my excuse me, my very first job in the industry, early 20s, and I worked for Ava DuVernay, and for many years. But in the beginning, I didn't really know how to be out at work or what that even meant. You know, everything was very buttoned up, and she always encouraged me to just bring my full self to every meeting, every conversation, every strategy. And that really helped me because I didn't really know how to be, you know, I just knew, you know, and so to just have that welcome and just like, what's your opinion, you know, and it's interesting because as a triple minority, like I'm thinking as a woman, I'm thinking as a Black person, I'm thinking as a gay person all the time, all of these different, you know, intersections. And she encouraged me to bring it all, you know, and that it really all mattered and it all made sense. And it all was going to be fed into, you know, whatever we were doing, a campaign or whatever it was just like, she made it clear that everything I was important. And so in all subsequent workplaces, I've made sure that I keep that in my mind and I never really settle for anything less than that. That's like a job requirement. So like if my supervisor or whoever I'm working with doesn't have that same passion for my wholeness, then I don't find myself there long, to be honest.
Wow. Very well said. Fantastic. Jeff, we'll finish this question with you.
Yeah, it's a tough question. And like everybody, I mean, I've been around so long, I feel like I've got a lot of mentors and coaches and people that have helped me along the way. But I think what was really important to me, I mean, as members of our community, you know, we have to make the decision many times to come out every day, multiple times a day if we want to. You know, I came out late in life. I didn't come out till I was 30, almost 31. And so I was with Lowe's at the time that was subsequently acquired by AMC in 2006. And then just 2 years later, we were approached about joining this lawsuit. And, you know, I wasn't really out to the AMC family at that point. I wasn't anything I was ashamed of. I just wasn't out. Didn't know how to be out at work, to Ellene's point. Like there's no manual on how to be out at work. But I had a boss at the time who I mean, I say, yeah, he was an ally, but he was also gay. So he was, I looked at him as a mentor because he, many of you probably know Patrick Ryan. He was my boss.
Oh, yeah.
And when I approached him to tell him that I wanted to join this lawsuit, and I didn't know what the impact would be with AMC. You know, it had only been a couple of years with AMC at the time. You know, it was a Midwest company. How would they be? We had a relatively new CEO at the time, but his name was Jerry Lopez at the time. And Patrick said, you just got to be you, just got to do it. And, you know, he's like, I will bring it up to the senior leadership team to let them know that you're going to be doing this. And I got nothing but support. So whatever fear or anxiety I had about it, I ended up at the time with the CEO who championed it and championed it through his entire tenure, and actually brought me to Kansas City to play a documentary that was filmed about the lawsuit. And he told me he could only stay for 15 minutes to watch the movie. And when the movie credits rolled at the end, he was still in the audience and he stood up and he was crying.
Oh,
you know,
I love
we
that.
had a CEO that cared. So I look at, you know, I have a lot of mentors, and I still have a lot of mentors at AMC that I look to for advice pretty regularly. But Patrick was definitely Even though he's a member of the community, I still looked at him as an ally because he taught me how to be open at work.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Love Patrick Ryan. So we're coming up on 5 o'clock. I want to give everybody just a moment to kind of have a closing statement, if you will. If there's advice you'd like to give people on the call, just anything that you want to say to kind of wrap up sort of what this discussion's been about. I'm so thankful for all of you for being here. I'm so thankful for your amazing answers to all these questions. We didn't even get to half of them. I've still got like a half a page of questions. But John, we'll start with you. Do you want to try to kind of give sort of closing arguments, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in the perfect industry to make a difference, right? Like we essentially make art, or art that is commerce, and it tells stories, and stories move people. You know, since we were living in caves and people were drawing and talking around the campfire, like, you know, stories matter. And we're in an industry where I still think, you know, this last year, emerging from the pandemic, it's shown how powerful theatrical is. A lot of people that move the chess pieces around have kind of moved them back now, and it's like, like I was getting an argument with somebody the other day that, you know, they were saying, oh well, you know, finally something is bringing theatrical back, and I think they referenced Top Gun or Jurassic, and I was like, okay, well, there's been Jurassic, there's been Buzz Lightyear, there's been Top Gun, there's been the Doctor Strange, there's been Spider-Man, which I think really kind of resurrected it. So like, stories matter. People listen to stories. If we tell our stories, you know, in a small way like we're doing here, or in a big way where they end up on, you know, an IMAX screen at Jeff's Theater, it's like, they matter, and that's how we'll move people. That's how we'll get people to support us. That's how any kind of, I think Jeff said it best, you know, like, it's part of progress. Progress can be painful, but we got to just keep pushing.
Awesome. Christian, what about you? Final words? I got Vanilla to come running in my office with a gong.
Yes, perfect.
I'm kidding.
Can ring me out. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think again, like, I agree. I think we're in a good position in an industry that, you know, seems to care. We have platforms to do these things. We have, you know, like people with big ideas and important positions, like the panelists, you know, who can kind of help drive that change. So, you know, I think we just kind of have to hold our companies to task, and, you know, yes, maybe only once a month we change the logo, but, you know, year round there's work to be done. And, you know, for those of us, we just talked about mentors and you know, people who are allies to us, hopefully we're paying it forward, you know, in, you know, the next generation of those folks, so that, you know, we can get even further, right? And yeah, I mean, I think that's it. And yeah, happy Pride Month, guys.
Yeah, woo! Ellene, we'll pivot over to you.
You know, I think I would just say that, you know, and everybody's made such great points, and thank you for having me. This has been really interesting and exciting to meet you all, and all your journeys are so inspiring. You know, our stories are not niche. You know, I think that's the main thing. It's like, you know, John said earlier, it's the simple things. It's throwing the ball back and forth. Like, we're part of the normal life, and we're not this separate entity. And I think the more we can see ourselves that way, and the more that we can encourage writers and directors and talent to really be a part of that storytelling, because the reality is interesting. You know, reality is authentic. It's touching, it's moving, you'll laugh, you'll cry. Like, we have all the elements of great stories. And if you just plug us in haphazardly, you don't get the effect. But if you really layer us and make us part of the fabric, you'll find that it's just as compelling as any other type of film. And so I would love to just end on saying, like, we make a living on storytelling. And, you know, for us to see it, whether we're exhibiting it, creating it, marketing it, it's all part of one continuum. And the more we can respect our audience and therefore respect the stories we're telling, we're just going to be richer as the consumers of this. You know, we're just going to have more and more, you know, Tu Wong Fu's and Pariahs and, you know, films for generations to come.
Fantastic. Jeff, we'll end on you.
I would separate it professionally and personally. And professionally, I think that we need to be willing to hold our companies that we work for accountable, and understand that that we have to be the executives may have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable as we make change, and we can't let, we can't stand in the way of progress, but we also can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Good is okay, better is good, best is the best, obviously. And then personally, I would say, to our community and the allies in the community, if you really want to help make progress, as my husband talks about the holy trinity of making a difference, and it's where you spend your money. So you want to support companies that support DEI and not just the LGBTQ plus community, but all minorities that support the BLM movement and other progressive movements. You want to support candidates that support those things as well. And then the most important and the most precious right we have that so many people don't take advantage of is you need to vote. You need to vote your interests, and it's okay to be a single issue voter.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you all for your amazing stories. I'm going to go ahead and bring Rich back on screen, who is going to facilitate the Q&A for everybody. Welcome back, Rich.
That was incredible. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you all. We have just a few questions, and something I want to know, because you're all at an executive level, is how can we educate our employees to be inclusive? We spoke a lot about allyship, but in the office, there's a lot of talk with how to address people with their pronouns. What do you think is the best way to educate your employees to treat people equally? And John, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go to when I worked at a studio, because I had a bigger team and lots of direct reports. I always had a section of a weekly meeting agenda that was called Open Forum. And because I had been on the Diversity Council for years at NBC Universal, I told the story about Nikki asking me to do that. Like, I was on it for years. I think it was over a decade. And I would always tell people in an open forum at the end of a weekly meeting, like, get involved, whatever it is, whatever advocacy group, because there are many at all of our companies. And it's like, get involved. If you're not part of the LGBTQ or ally club, join whatever club it is that supports whatever, like there's like at NBC Universal, there's a veterans organization. And it's like, and you don't have to have served in the military to join it. So it's like, just tell people, tell people what's available, tell them that they can join it, and we'll all be better for it.
Anyone else like to add?
Rich, can I just add, you can lead by example as well. Like one of the things that I did over the last 5 years or so is I started adding my pronouns to my email signature. And pretty soon after that, I actually got a few emails back from people saying, thank you for doing this. My daughter is transgender. My daughter's going through a transition. This means the world to see you putting your pronouns in your email signature. And it was something as simple as that. That is a very simple thing to do. So just lead by example. I
found that when I see a member of our senior leadership team who uses pronouns in their email, when I would first see it, I would send them an email and thank them for that. And I think as long as you're having conversations, whether you're field level or corporate office level, you need to be talking about DEI. The one thing that we as general managers learned at AMC just in the last few months is that, surveys have told us that the generation that are leading our theaters now, DEI is up there on the list of the reasons why they join a company, why they stay with a company, and why they recruit others to the company. So as long as DEI is part of that equation and part of that conversation, then you're going to help bring in future leaders to your organization.
Well, thank you so much. I really, truly am in awe of each of you for sharing your stories and educating us all in topics some of us were unaware of. It's conversations like these with people like you who give me the courage to live freely. And for those who tuned in today, I hope you learned that proper representation matters. The more we actively try to be inclusive, the more likely we're able to evoke positive change. And when there's positive change, there is always hope for a better future. Thank you so much, Wendy, Ellene, Jeff, Christian, John, and everyone at Film Row. Throwing it back to you, Shelley.
Thank you, Rich.
Oh my goodness, such an amazing panel. Like, I have a notebook right here. I always keep something here, wrote down some of the key things that you guys have said and that will live on with me. Rich, you started us off with do not live in fear. You know, I think we have to remind ourselves that, you know, often don't live in fear. Be who you are, be authentic to you. Jeff, you said it's okay to be uncomfortable, you know, and I think again, like that is a great point. Ellene, your quote from Ava DuVernay, you said, everything that you are is important. Man, that shook me. Like I was like, whoo, you know, just thinking about the boxes that you check off and her validating you to say, everything that you are important. John, telling your story matters. I said that when I asked you guys, you know, for the meet and greet, I was like, people knowing who you guys are, hearing your stories, it just makes a difference. Christian, don't forget to, you know, reach back and bring somebody up along. You know, I think those reminders, you know, reach back, bring somebody when you've gotten to a place, you know, go back and bring somebody up with you. And Wendy, lead by example. You know, all of these, great. It was a great conversation. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. LEAD has such a special place to my heart. You know, diversity, inclusion. I think we just need to continue the conversation. I appreciate all your guys' time. Thank you to the Film Row LEAD team, Frank, Mariana, Tony, Carl, John, our president of Film Row, Jeff Wilk. I appreciate all your guys' support. Thank you for everyone who tuned in to us today. We couldn't have done it without our panelists, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It was amazing. And thank you, Wendy, for stepping through. Rich, my fellow Sonyites, thank you guys so much. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Right.